Good afternoon, and thank you for attending this webinar on data visualization for small business owners. I'm your moderator, Roxanna Astorga from the Pace University Small Business Development Center. The Pace University Small Business Development Center is a regional center of the New York Small Business Development Center. The NYSBDC is a U.S. Small Business Administration resource partner with regional centers at higher education institutions and outreach offices at other locations across New York State. Our no-cost, high-quality advising, education, research, and advocacy services are made possible by funding from the SBA, New York State, and our host campuses. Today's webinar will be presented by Dr. Vishal Lala, Professor of Marketing from Pace University's Lubin School of Business. In a moment, you'll hear from Ms. Sandra Selly, Business Advisor of the Pace University Small Business Development Center. Attendees are muted and will not be on camera. Your chats will be visible to me and our presenters. If you have any questions, please don't hesitate to type them in the Q&A box or the chat. You can open your Zoom chat and Q&A box from the buttons at the bottom of your Zoom window. We will address questions during the presentation. With that, I will turn my time over to Ms. Sandra Selly.
Thank you, Roxana, and thank you for joining us today. My name is Sandra Selly. I'm a business advisor at Pace University Small Business Development Center. And before we begin today's webinar, I would like to take a few minutes to introduce the services that Pace Small Business Development Center provide at no cost. Our main services is to provide advisement at no cost, in-depth and confidential, one-on-one, and training and research to help a small business to grow or to expand. We work with entrepreneurs that look for expand their business, to transform a side business in a career, or to turn a concept into an open small business. We are a team of 5 business advisors, our director, Andrew Flan, our office coordinator, and 2 Pace University interns. Our services are providing financing, advising in financing on how to make a loan packages, bank community advice, and financial projections, crowdfunding models, equity investment, how to develop a business plan, marketing, also how to work with the government to get certifications like a minority women business entrepreneur with the state, with the city, and also federal. Market research. We have 4 librarians upstate New York that provide research for our clients. And we have a partnership with Neighborhood Entrepreneur Law Project that permits you to get information about what is the best legal structure for your business to review a contract and more, or intellectual property, and many other topics, legal topics. We also provide webinars like this one today, but I would like to invite you for our next in-person small business financing panel and networking. It will be held on July 28th, Tuesday, next week, from 9 a.m. to 12:30. You can meet there with 15 financing organizations like bankers and community financial development corporations. There will be 2 panels where you can ask many different questions on how to start a process of financing, to look if you are ready, or just to start the process to be ready for the near future. Our services could be provided online by Zoom or in person at Pace University, or in one of our satellites office in Brooklyn, and also in the New York Public Libraries in Manhattan, or the Brooklyn Public Library in Central Office. But we have also in Williamsburg, Grand Street, in Flatbush, Industry City, Red Hood, Park Slope, and more. Please don't hesitate to contact us at SBDC at pace.edu, or visit our website, pacesbdc.org. In Instagram, we have at Pace SBDC. Thank you, and let's proceed with the webinar. Dr. Vishal Lala, you have the word.
Great, thank you for that introduction and discussion about the Small Business Center. We are going to discuss data visualization in the session. The materials for this session are on GitHub. I'll share that link with you very soon as well. But let me start out by thanking you for joining me for this journey on data visualization. This subject is close to heart because it is a topic that I introduced 2 courses for at Pace University many years ago when this was an unheard of subject or topic. So one question you might have walking into this workshop or session is are you in the right place? Well, if you work with data or you present data to others, you're in the right place. As simple as that. So as has been mentioned before, I'm a professor of marketing, Lubin School of Business at Pace University. If you want to get a hold of me, my email address is on the slide. Let me get right to it then. Data visualization. What is it? Why bother with what data visualization is? And then we'll talk a little bit about, is it being used by a lot of people? Are they getting it right? And how can you do it? So data visualization, the idea behind data visualization is to, as the phrase suggests, be able to visualize data, to make sense of it. We live in a world where we are inundated with data, and it is growing by the second. We have more and more data, and thanks to generative AI, it is generating even more data for us to work with. The prefixes for data have grown over time. We've gone from mega to giga to tera to peta and on to gigabytes and even beyond, underscoring the growth in data. It's coming from many different sources. Transaction data was the old traditional source of data, but over time we're getting data from social interactions between individuals on digital platforms, Internet of Things, machines giving us data. So there's a lot of data coming in, which for a lot of people who go around with labels like data scientists is mouthwatering. But for many others, it might just be a gigantic migraine. Because now you have data, but you've got to make sense of it. And that can be distressing for some. The thought of using software to analyze the data can be scary, So this is where data visualization comes in, right? It is offering you a method, a means to make sense of data without having to deal with daunting programming software, to do it easily in a very visual manner. So in a nutshell, it's about taking a lot of data and inspecting it in a visual manner, dialing down the use of things like spreadsheets and programming code, and maximizing the use of visual elements. And along the way, piecing everything together to emphasize a storytelling approach. And that's data visualization for you. Hopefully, you are convinced you're in the right place now. Obviously, the next question is, why should anybody bother with data visualization? Well, it's a great way to get around spreadsheets and great way to get around programming code and make sense of data, but what is it about data visualization that makes it attractive? A couple of things. One, it is sort of like natural. It makes data clear, tends to be attention grabbing, sticky in the brain, and lastly, make an impression. It's persuasive. Let's begin by examining the first aspect. Here's a little eye test for you. How many twos do you see here? Yes, go ahead, count the number of twos on the screen. We got a steady flow of answers coming in, and you're really good. You've identified a number of twos. Some have gone beyond just what's in the matrix to identify the two in the title as well as in the footnote. But yes, indeed, you can kind of go through this and identify that there's a two here and a second one here, a third one here. And as you go through left to right, you can kind of identify, well, there are 3 twos in this little matrix of numbers. Now, let's do another vision test for you. How many 6s do you see? The responses are coming in much quicker, which is telling me it was a little easier for you to spot the number of 6s. All right, keeping up with our vision test. Here's your last vision test. How many 4s do you see? Seems like folks are getting faster and faster responding. The response time has decreased over the course of this 3-panel exercise. And hopefully you get the point that I'm getting at here. It's not so much about counting 2s, 4s, and 6s, right? I'll back up a few slides so you can see where I'm going with this. How many 2s do you see? How many 6s do you see? How many 4s do you see? As soon as I put up the 6s and 4s, you kind of notice it wasn't so much about looking for a 6, but looking for the thing that was standing out, right? The simple visual nuance of making a number boldface makes it easier to spot and identify. It doesn't require a footnote or a caption to inform the audiences that look for the green things because the 4s are green. The mind kind of automatically looks at the green thing, sees a few greens and recognizes the 4s, and quickly picks up on the idea that 4s are green, simply count the greens. And that's much more quicker and more natural for the mind to do. What I'm getting this illustration is our mind is quite naturally visual. You may have heard of folks saying things like, I'm a visual learner, or I'm not a numbers person. Well, as it turns out, most of us are not numbers people when we are born. Yes, we get good with math. Some of us are very good working with spreadsheets, but that's not what we were built for. We were built to survive in nature, built to deal with the adversity that nature brings upon us. Think of the caveman or cavewoman, dealing with large bears or large animals in nature. And their goal was to quickly dodge these animals. So when the animals coming at them, the goal was not to figure out the velocity or momentum of the creature, rather to realize a large thing is coming and to run and look for cover, right? So we are quite naturally visual in our thinking. So if you give something that's visual in nature, it's going to hit people's cognitions much quicker than giving them a spreadsheet full of numbers. There's a study done by, I think it's the Bureau of Labor Statistics called the American Time Use Survey. In this screenshot is a lot of interesting information, which may be viewed as a bit sexist because it's contrasting men and women's, work days. And so basically goes through and kind of identifies, based on a survey, how much time men are spending doing various things, women are spending doing various things, and so on and so forth, right? Goes through. And this has been posted on the website for years now, until very recently when they realized that going through this information, while possible, you can look at men and say, well, men are spending a little less time on personal care than women. But this story is a little bit more clear as soon as you throw that into a bar chart. Now you can see more clearly the differences, for example, in time spent on personal care by men versus women, eating and drinking, and so on and so forth. So bottom line, when you graph something out, give somebody a visual indication of the data, it is much easier to interpret. It's also clearer, right? When it comes to trends or patterns, we are accustomed to looking at lots and lots of data, but identifying a pattern in the data, that's hard from looking at raw numbers. But as soon as you take this data you're looking at your screen, it's a snapshot of a larger data set. You throw that into a graph paper, And now you can see sort of like the ups and downs and how regularly they're occurring. You can identify a seasonal pattern. Similarly, in this very simple set of data in front of you, again, you can see it goes from Jan to December, sharing sales before domestic and international. As such, if you spend enough time looking through this data, you might be able to spot how sales are going up and then down and up and down and so on, right? But is there a pattern you can find? Well, that's hard to do when you look at the numbers. Surely, if you spend long enough looking at staring these numbers, you might be able to spot some sort of a pattern. But we can accelerate that learning and understanding if you can just throw the data into a visual. A line graph here does a really good job of showing you that domestic sales are going up and down very regularly. In fact, it's a seasonal pattern. For international sales, the pattern is not seasonal. You're seeing a flat line, and then you're noticing an outlier in August. So again, make a visual, people get it right away, because it's just clear. John Tukey, many years ago, said, picture is not merely 1,000 words, but it is much more likely to be scrutinized than words are to be read. In other words, a visual is attention-getting. Here's my younger son. Many years ago, he was curious to know, how common is his birthday? Now, he's born on Halloween, which for some kids, it might be a good day to be born on because it's the candy day of America. The flip side, of course, is that everybody is busy doing trick-or-treating on his birthday. So anyway, I had to answer his question, so I set out doing just that. I went and got data to figure out, again, how common his birthday is. I got him the data. He wasn't very impressed, right? This data contains information about the number of kids born.
Reinas, Shakira volvió a sorprender durante su más reciente presentación en
Getting some
Estados
feedback
Unidos.
there.
Los Ghetto Kids la acompañaron en su clásica entrada al escenario. El grupo de bailarines
Sandra, I'm getting some feedback from your
también
machine.
formará parte del espectáculo de medio tiempo de la final del Mundial. Además, entre los asistentes estuvo una de las bailarinas que también la va a acompañar en el esperado show.
Sorry about that.
Otra de nuestras reinas.
Okay. Pardon the interruption there. So as I was saying, so my son was curious about his about the number of kids born on his birth on the same day as he was born, Halloween, that is. And here's some data from the Social Security data page. It shows the number of births by date. He wasn't impressed. You shouldn't be impressed either, because this is good, but it can be better, right? Now, what made him very excited and interested was when I spun this into a heat map. This visual here shows you, and it's also linked to a more interactive version of the same thing. It shows births by day of the month, births by date. It's gathering data across a couple of years and looking at different dates. So let's see. Halloween. Let's look at Christmas. You probably get the idea by just looking at this picture. Let's go to the interactive version. Now, this didn't take a whole lot of time to put together. In this interactive version, you can see, as I hover over Halloween, it is ranked 356 out of 366. So that means a fairly rare birthday. But other days that are also equally rare. Well, look at, for example, Christmas, the day before Christmas. This day here is November 23rd, July 4th, Jan 1st. A good thing about a visualization is not only answers the question you're seeking, but also creates conversation. It captivates audiences. So a really good reason to make a visualization is not just to seek the answer you're looking for or support your hypothesis, but also explore the data and learn about many other nuances about the data.
Hey, Dr. Lala. So we
Yeah.
got one question
Sure.
from Raul Brown. He asks, what's the data source?
Great. This data came from the Social Security Administration, their data page. Now, there have been recent changes in the administration, following which they've been withdrawing or pulling off some data sets. So I'm not sure if it's still available on their website. This was pulled about 4 years ago from the SSA's website. Great question. So moving along, here's a couple of more examples to make the point about the value of a good visualization. So you saw the American Time Use Survey I showed you results for in a bar chart. Well, take a look at what Nathan Yao has done with this. He has converted this into a very active visualization, and it looks like this. It's animated and all. It kind of goes through and shows you with a clock on the top left-hand corner at 4:12 a.m. what are people doing in the United States, right? It's based on, of course, some dated 2014 data. But nevertheless, you can see this beautiful picture with bubbles moving around, showing you that at 4:30 a.m., most people are sleeping, as they should. Some are, by the way, at work. Some are doing housework at that hour. And some are doing leisure at that hour? Interesting. Okay, I wonder who those people are. I'm going to step up the pace of this here a little bit. So we'll go to like a faster clip. So it's 5 o'clock now, and a lot of people are beginning to wake up. And by 6, many more people are waking up and heading to work or elsewhere. And at about 6 o'clock, you're down to about half the people are still sleeping at 6:30. But as the clock moves along, you'll notice by 7 o'clock, fewer people are sleeping, and they're off to getting dressed up, getting to work. And if you look at, for example, at the time at about 8 o'clock or so, I'm going to step this up a little bit more, even more movement happening. So you can kind of see this very dramatic kind of visual that, while it might not be very objective in the information providing you, it really dramatizes sort of like the American Time Use Survey data. It makes it exciting. It makes it look interesting. It makes it engaging. And that's the beauty of a good visualization, right? It really creates conversation. It draws attention, gets people into it. Right? People may not be excited to look at a spreadsheet, but this bouncing balls moving around on a screen looks interesting, right? Okay. So let me take you to one more picture here. You may have all been, well, yes, yesterday. This is July 20th when this session is occurring. So if you're watching a recording this, July 19th was the FIFA World Cup. After about a month and a half, a number of teams in the United States played soccer, and Spain ended up winning it all. But as I was watching the World Cup, it occurred to me that many of these players, they it's I guess politically incorrect to say this, but they don't look the part. It looks like they don't seem to represent the typical person in that country, visually speaking, of course. So I went ahead and gathered some data on this. So I went to the Football API, assisted by Claude Sonnet 4.6, and the Wikipedia pages, and I gathered some data on this. But I didn't want to just gather some data. I want to make a picture out of that. So here's what I did. I made a picture out of that. So here's a picture. This picture here shows you, in a sense, these are the countries people are born in, and the countries they're playing soccer for in the FIFA World Cup. So you can see, for example, a lot of French-born players are playing for countries other than France. A lot of Dutch players are playing for other countries other than Netherlands, and so on and so forth. Here's the interactive version of the same thing. In the interactive version, if I click on France, for example, you can find out, well, where are these French-born players going to play? Congo, Haiti, Morocco, Algeria, Cape Verde, Tunisia, Ivory Coast, Ghana, Senegal. What about the United States-born players? Well, there are a few US-born players who didn't play for the United States. They went and played for Haiti and Mexico. Surprise, surprise. Okay, so hopefully I got you excited about this. Hopefully I got you excited about the idea that when you visualize data, it makes it interesting, right? And that's really good motivation to want to visualize data. Research has shown that data visualizations are in general more fluent to process. They're easier to understand. They have much more impact than words and text. They seem to be remembered and recalled better. And then finally, this part is a bit unsubstantiated, or the research is divided on this view. But I've noticed that in many scenarios, people are less likely to question a graph or a chart. You give them a verbal argument and they will counter-argue. But when you give them a graph, they kind of see that as, well, that's correct. I can't debate that. I can't argue that because it's in a graph. I find that interesting. And so on. So the last case I'm going to make here is that the data tends to be that graphs tend to be persuasive as well. So a chart is going to have more impact. So here's an example of some, an anecdote from many years ago where I presented some data to my boss, and he gave me a task to perform. I gave him some data to look at, and he looked very intense. He thanked me for the job I did, but never acted upon the data I gave him. I didn't like that. I was unhappy with him. That, by the way, is a cartoon, not him actually in the picture. But it took me many more years and growing up to realize that my mistake in giving him the data was that I gave him a lot of raw data that was clearly overwhelming. If instead I'd presented to him something like a story, such as this, if I'd presented to him lots of graphs and charts, he would have been a lot more welcoming of the information I was providing him. Okay. So that was the point about, again, the motivation for why we want to visualize data. The last piece I'll take you through here as part in the subject is some interesting graphs. There's some data here about economic inequality, and this is data taken from hands-on visualization by Jack Doherty and Ilya Ilyenko. It makes an argument. Economic inequality has sharply risen in the United States since the 70s. It's the claim. We bring in some data here expressed in a paragraph. It says in 1970, top 10% US adults had an average income of $135,000 compared to the bottom 50 at $16,500. In over the next 5 decades, the top 10% went to $350,000 and the bottom half went to $19,000, right? So again, you can read this and then form your opinion on whether this is believable or not. We'll tabulate this next. Okay, so here's a slide that tabulates that information. What do you think? Are you convinced that inequality has grown in the United States? Okay. You can share in the chat window. Do you feel like, based on this table, inequality has gone up in the US? Right, so the evidence seems to suggest that, there's this jump in the top 10% going from $135,000, $36,000, $250,000. Similarly, bottom 50% is about flat. Now, I'll ask the same question again. Do you believe inequality has gone up in the United States? It's the same information, except it's graphed out now. We've got a visual now. And again, just looking at the visual, it seems like much more emphatic in that this difference looks like, wow, this is a huge difference, right? Okay. So the point is that, again, we look at a graph and somehow we are persuaded more by the graph. Having looked at that, I'm going to ask the question one more time, right? Do you feel like inequality has gone up in the United States? This data has not been fudged. It is the same data. We're telling a story right now with a visual. You might find it hard to believe. Trust me, it is the same data. But if I present this, few people will be convinced from looking at the graph alone that inequality has gone up. Well, few people will be convinced until they pay close attention to, I'm waiting for somebody to note in the chat window, what is the thing they've got to pay attention to here? Same graph, by the way. I mean, same data, not same graph. So you kind of see here, the gap is exactly the y-axis, right? The y-axis is log scaled. So by having a log scale y-axis now, I've told a story that is going to convey the exact opposite, right? And a bit of ethics comes into play here now, where you kind of realize as you got a powerful tool you've got, you can make people be convinced one way or the other by modifying the presentation of the graph. Keep in mind, graphs are a powerful, persuasive tool. You can use it for good or evil, right? Like most things. Okay, so that was, again, kind of a background about, again, data visualization and reasons and motivations to want to use it. As it turns out, graphs didn't pop up yesterday. They've been around for a while, but they have been proliferating more and more. You're seeing them in sports, you're seeing them in various dashboards presented. If you have an app like Strava or an Apple Fitness app, this picture on the left is a visual from Strava when I did a 4-mile swim last time, which showing kind of like the path I took, all tracked by my watch and visualized by Strava there. So Apple's keeping track of my heart rate along the way, and so on and so forth. Right. So graphs and charts are becoming really easy to spin up. It doesn't take a whole lot to make a pretty good graph because we got great software now. You can go from the graph on the left, the one on the right. The one on the left probably took hours and hours to make when it was built like 200 years ago. The one on the right would take about 5 minutes to build, right? So because there are so many good charts, your stakeholders, your boss, your clients all expect more. They expect not just individual charts, they expect dashboards. They expect you to go from having, old-fashioned Excel-like charts to fancier charts. they were going to expect you to go from having a simple chart to a data story, sort of like a visualization that pieces together related charts into a cohesive narrative. So bottom line, the bar has gone up. But the process of telling data stories, while made easy by computers, while made easy by software, is not a natural thing for most people, right? So you can do it, but are you doing it right or not? And that's a big question here. So, and part of the reason is that most colleges and schools don't teach visualization, but people pick it up from using a software. And the software may help you get the job done, but it may not be done right. So you have these graphs on the right here in this slide illustrating a lot of things that you shouldn't be doing. They look colorful. Pie charts look pretty when they have like 5, 6 colors in them, but they are not effective charts. When you have graphs with many colored lines, they're really hard to parse. It helps focus attention on one thing if you have one color versus all other colors, right? So all these are examples of graphs, excuse me, that are poorly constructed, right? So all I'm going to say at this point is that there's a difference between just throwing data into a software and letting it spin up for you some fancy 3D chart and having an effective graph. The ultimate goal of a good chart should be to tell an effective story. I'm going to pause here for a few moments here, see if there are any questions at this stage before I get into a hands-on illustration of some of the ways to visualize data. Okay, so hopefully you have oh, there's some questions. So hopefully I've got you convinced on the merits of visualizing data. Let's see how you can do it, right? There's many ways to go about doing it. Software is key, of course, and we don't want to be using graph papers to make or graph paper to draw out things with a pen and a ruler. So we're going to find software that enable this process. There are many software that can accomplish this goal, and my recommendation is my recommendation here is to pick a software that you think is good for you and really like hone in on that and get really good at that, whatever the software might be. There's many kinds of software that go by names like Python, R, Tableau, Power BI, and so on and so forth. Here's a simple binary classification of those software. One way I think is an effective way of kind of categorizing these is the software that involve code, which involve writing programming code in Python or R or JavaScript, and ones that involve like point and click software, like menus you can work with. Right? So the ones with menus go by names like Tableau, SASVIA, ClickView, and so on and so forth. And again, it's a choice to make out here. If you feel like that you don't want to deal with programming code, right? This is scary, right? If this is scary, then your good option is to go with menu-based software. Amongst these, Power BI is, I guess, comes with a lot of Windows software come with Power BI packaged into it. If that's the case, then that might be a great option. However, the downside about Power BI is that it is hard to work with on a Mac. Tableau, on the other hand, is a software that works equally well on Mac and Windows. And in my opinion, Tableau is best of breed when it comes to menu-based software to visualize data. I don't want to make this a Tableau session. I want to be very clear about that. A lot of what I'm going to demonstrate to you in the next couple of minutes here can be done with many software. Tableau is just one of the many software in this vast ecosystem of visualization software. In my opinion, it is perhaps the best out there, but there are many others that come close to this one. So Tableau comes in many shapes and forms. There's desktop software, Tableau, Tableau Prep, server, cloud, so on and so forth. The question that often comes up is, how much is it going to cost me? Well, Tableau Desktop has a trial version, but it is exactly what it sounds like, a trial version. There's a Tableau Public, I believe it's called Tableau Online right now, or Tableau. The naming has kind of, they've renamed some of their software last couple of months. But Tableau Public is a free version of Tableau. They promise it'll be free forever. As with all things free, one of the caveats is, there's going to be a caveat, right? Is that whatever data you work with on Tableau Public is going to be saved in the Tableau Public cloud, which means it's in somebody else's computer. So obviously, if you got financial data, health data, you don't want to be using Tableau Public. But if you don't think your data is private or has any privacy issues, then Tableau Public's a great option. It does a lot of things that Tableau Desktop does, and does it for free. All right, so I am going to walk you through some of what Tableau Desktop can do here, and it's to illustrate, again, the power of visualizing data. So Tableau looks like this. It's the start page for Tableau looks something like this, and has a data source view and a worksheet view. I'm going to try and illustrate a few different graphs that Tableau can spin up for you. And you can think of creating graphs based on what the purpose what purpose you have for visualizing your data. You just want to show the data, compare to more numbers, and so on and so forth. So with that being said, I have a couple of interesting data sets that I found. Some of them I'll share sources with you as I go through. And all the data I'm going to go over is also parked here on my GitHub repo, right? So you'll find all the data sets I'm going over right here, right? All right. So, and that link I'll drop in the chat window. It's already been shared with you, but if it's not been shared with you, I'll drop that chat window right now. So you have that as well. So again, all the data sets listed that I'll go over right now are in the GitHub repo that I've linked right now. To get a hold of the data set, the way you typically go about doing this is you click on, let's say we're going to go with salary first. So I'll click on the link here. It's going to take me over here. I'm going to say download raw file. So this raw file, as you can see, contains information about how much money software programmers make on average by country. It's a small, simple data set, a good data set to get warmed up with. Okay. So I'll take you now. I'm going to share my screen. I'm going to switch share to Tableau to give you a look at what Tableau looks like. And here it goes. This is uh-oh. So again, the GitHub link has been shared by Roxanna. Thank you. I was mistakenly sharing the link with you instead of everyone. Thank you for broadcasting that to the group. Okay, so I'm going to switch my share right now to Tableau so you can take a look at what that looks like next. Right, so this is your Tableau screen. And again, Tableau is one of many software that you can use to construct visualizations. This example, I'm going to pull up the data set I alluded to earlier called Software Developer Median Salary 2024.csv. This pulls up the data in Tableau. It looks like it did on GitHub. This is the data source tab or view. I'm now going to head to the sheet view or sheet tab for Tableau. When I click on sheet 1, I'm not going to see this view of the data. It's going to look a little different, right? Notice here, there's one column called country, another column called median salary. One is a geographical variable. One is a numerical variable. As I click on sheet 1, notice country and median salary are going to go on the left now. In other words, those are the variables in our data. They go on to the left. The data set is very simple, right? So you should have expected to see only two columns here, or two variables here, right? But we're getting like more than that. We're getting multiple variables. So Tableau is going to generate some variables automatically for us, like these. And these. And this. Some variables have been created by Tableau to enable its machinery to do things that you may not have thought of yet. Okay. Right. So the way you construct graphs in Tableau is you tell it to what variable to work with. And we assign it a certain place or role. We tell it you go here, or you go here. And then it just spins up a graph for us. If we're not happy with the graph we get by default, we change the graph type here. Or we change the representation of the marks here. Right, so country goes to columns, drag the pill. These are called pills because they look like pills. And then drag median salary over to rows, and we get a graph, right? Just like that. Tableau decided that a bar chart is appropriate. That's the automatic choice it made. Right? And that's a simple graph showing us a comparison of salary across different countries. If I click on this sort icon, I'll get United States showing up on the left, and everything's descending order now. Oftentimes what happens is with vertical bar charts like this, names get chopped off like this. So what I could do here is I could decide to swap the pills. So if I move sum median salary to columns, country to rows, now I get a horizontal bar chart. It is no longer sorted, so I'll sort it this time again. And now Netherlands fits in nicely. Furthermore, I can now go and say, okay, this is a bar chart we have, which is great. What else? What other way can we represent this data? Well, one is a bar chart, but it doesn't have to be a bar chart. It could be one of many other kinds. Some are meaningful, some are not meaningful in this context. Maybe I want to just see the raw numbers. So let's try that. What if I represent median salary as a label? Now I'm going to get a table of numbers. Right? Maybe your boss just simply, the data is simple enough to a point where all you want to show is the numbers. That's it, right? Somebody suggested a line graph, so let's do that. So let me go put median salary back up here. What about a line graph? Can we do that? I guess we could. I'll select line out here, right? And I like the suggestion because it brings up something really, really good. So first things first, I've made a line graph out here, but typically for a line graph, you want the numbers on the y-axis, or the graph, it just is awkward right now. I'll swap the pills again here, and I get this, right? Now, this is okay because, I mean, it is connecting the top of all the bars in a sense. That's what a line graph is doing here. But it is inadvertently making my mind think there's a trend or a pattern involved out here. And that's what line graphs do. It makes our mind expect a change over time. So I would recommend in this case, a line graph would not be the right choice to make, right? If, however, the x-axis was evolving over time, then definitely line graph would be the way to go. So in this case, you could try a bar graph. You could try showing raw numbers that we showed you before, like this. And then we'll this over like this, maybe, right? Alternatively, you can try something like a heat map. Let's see, what if I drag this variable sum median over to color? Oops, that was a mistake on my part. Okay, there you go. And now we get a heat map out of this, right? So now the heat map is showing you darker colors, indicating bigger salaries. I could also bring the actual salaries back on. Maybe you want to do the numbers as well. And now the numbers are also part of the graph. So you've seen a couple of different ways of representing your data using, let's see, a heat map, a line graph, a bar graph, and so on, right? Of course, not all of them are appropriate, and that's the thing about, again, the human in the loop, right? You want to make sure there's a human here who can look at the graphs and see what is the best way to tell my story. There's often multiple ways of going about doing that. Okay, I'm going to hop back over to the slide and see where we were. That was the salary example I just alluded to. I said lollipop chart. That should be interesting. Okay, we'll see if we have time for that. And so on. So there's a couple of examples out here. I want to get to one more example before we wrap up because I'm looking at the clock. It's 12:52. So, okay, so there's a data set here on most holidays and so on. Let's do one more, and this is one that really got my attention, right? So there's a data set on age of our leaders in the GitHub repo, and we'll finish with that one here. It says age, president, legislators, people, and it's going to be an interesting one, I hope. So I'm going to hop over now again to Tableau, pull in another data set. And here we are. This data set is intriguing because it has information about the average age of people of different countries. It has information about the average age of legislators and their leaders. In the interest of time, I'm going to not discuss this in too much detail, but tell you this, that generally speaking, a tall data set is hard to work with. Sorry, a wide data set is hard to work with. So we tend to make it tall. And here's how I'm doing this in Tableau. I'm going to call this category of people. I'll call this category. And I'll say the next column is age of the people. All right. So off we go now that this is created to another sheet. We can spin up a simple graph out here. So I have here information about the countries. And I also have information about the age of people. We'll try and do this only for different categories or specific categories. So I'll do this for, I'll represent these as circles. So here I can see as I hover over, the average age of an Australian is 38. Their leader is 54. And the legislator's average age is 55. I'll only keep here information about the leader and the population average and stop at that. And because we have so many countries out here, let's simplify the list of countries so it's easier to examine. I'll pick a few countries that I'll just say Australia, Britain, and no good reason why I'm choosing these countries. Picking familiar, large countries, similar to the United States in some ways. And okay. And let's leave South Korea on there too. Okay, so I've got here about, 10 or so countries. And the point here is that if you have too much data, it can be overwhelming in a graph. So I'm simplifying it by only sharing some information in this graph. We right now have two bubbles here, one for age of population, one of the leader. Let me color these differently. So I'll drag category and drop it on color. What this will allow me to do is to color the leader one way and the population another way. I'm going to make leaders kind of like maybe a grayish kind of color, right? And the grays, and make a dark gray here. And population, I'll make it like green maybe, or some shade of green. Okay, so you can see now here is showing off the people and the population. And on the x-axis is the age. I'm going to do one more thing out here. I will create another age column. So on the left, I have here a graph that's dots. On the right, that's dots. Let's change that. I'll leave the annotations I've done on screen as is, so you can see what's going to happen now. On the right, we'll make them a line. And right, and we'll take the color off. Okay. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to create what's called a dumbbell chart out of this by merging these two sections together by what is called a dual axis. Okay. With that done, I know that was a lot of stuff done really quickly. I'm going to now hide the axes completely. They're gone. And I'll clean up some of this other stuff also. And then we'll make some more room out here, make this a little bigger. We don't need a legend anymore. Take that away as well. And I'll say here, this is going to be people versus leader as a title of the graph. And I'll say people is what color? People is the color. Oops. People is a color in the legend. Let me get the legend back on for a bit. Okay. So color people, same as the legend. And then leader, again, I'll make it the same color as its legend as well. All right, so notice how I've deliberately colored them the same as the marks. So I no longer need the legend. I'll get rid of legend now altogether. In general, a graph with legend is not a good graph because it makes people go to left and right. So that's not a good thing. You don't want to do that to your audiences. And I'm just going to keep this very abstract right now, just say people as leader, and that's it. And next thing I want to do here is I don't have the ages anymore. Let me put those inside those circles. I'll make the circles a little bigger, too big, and a little smaller. Okay, and that's good enough. And now let's put the age, actually the number in the circle. It's not quite in the circle right now. It's outside the circle, so I'm going to align it so it fits right inside the circle. There you go. All righty. So we have here an interesting graph that shows us a dumbbell chart. The difference between the ages of the leader and the average age of citizens of those countries. Right? It didn't take a whole lot. Obviously, there's a lot more cleanup still to be done with this before it's production ready to share with the boss. But hopefully I've made the point that it doesn't take a whole lot of effort to get together a fairly clean looking chart. I am almost out of time out here, so I'm going to start to wind down here. I'll take you back to the end of the slides out here. The point I'm going to leave you with is that we have gone over what visualization is, the motivation for why we should do this, the fact that it's widely available, but not everybody is doing it right, and we examine some illustrations of how to go about doing it. There's a lot of nice, really well-written books about this subject, and those are listed out here. I will see if you have any time for questions. If you'd like to get a hold of me, my email address is on here, and that's my LinkedIn profile QR code as well on screen. I will now see if there are any questions or if we have any more time available.
Yeah, so we do have a few questions that came in during the presentation. One asked, is there a link for a trial version we can use?
Yeah, so if you simply go to tableau.com, there's a Tableau desktop that comes with a 14-day trial version. I don't have that link with me offhand, but I think a simple Google should get you to the trial version. Tableau Public is free for good. The only thing about Tableau Public is it's again, all your data is always stored on the cloud.
Okay. The other question is, I would appreciate some sources about how to data visualize theory, as in what the thinking is about, what the mind does with the different ways to styles of graphs, and what you said about trust, etc.
Yeah, so that's the part where, again, all these authors do a really good job of, again, discussing just that. Again, how people are perceiving graphs, when to use what kind of a chart. Um, why, for example, do all these people hate pie charts? When is a bar chart appropriate? When is a heat map right for you? How do we feel about graphs with bouncing bubbles, those sorts of animated charts, right? So all these books, again, they do a really good job of discussing those nuances.
Okay. The next question is, does the data set need to be particular form other than being in a CSV file?
Tableau can ingest data in many different formats, not just CSV. So it can take SAS data format and SPSS format. It literally can connect to a Google Data Connector, and it can get data from a number of different formats. My general suggestion is that if your data is in CSV format, it's basically a text-based file. Pretty much any platform can absorb it or ingest it. So the safest bet is always a CSV file for across all different platforms. Tableau itself is very flexible.
So this is the last question. What is the path from these graphs and the more complicated looking data visualization examples, like the coffee production one you showed? Is there separate graphic design required? I know you can teach that now, but I'd like to know the steps.
Yeah, sure. I'm just going to hop over quickly to Tableau here. In Tableau, there are these different tabs on the bottom. These are the tabs that show you how you make graphs. Then there's this tab here that says it's for dashboards. And finally, there's a tab for stories, right? So what you saw for coffee, for example, is a Tableau data story. And there are a number of illustrations about this on the web. I'm sorry, I know I've got 1 minute I'm going to take here to take you back over to, if you simply Google Tableau Public, this is a place where people create Tableau visualizations, either on Tableau Desktop or in Tableau Public, and they make it publicly available out here. You don't have to sign in. You can simply, use your just go in on here and see, for example, all the different things people have done on Tableau Public. So right here, for example, there's, I don't know what this is, recreation of Florence Nightingale's rose diagram. I don't know what this is about, but somebody's built this out and you can play with this thing. So you can also interact with this graph and it's publicly available. You can also download the exact workbook and dissect it to understand how the authors created this particular workbook.
Great. As we wrap up, I want to say thank you to everyone who joined this webinar today. Thank you, Dr. Vishal Lala, for presenting such helpful information to our attendees. When we close the webinar, you will see a survey on your screen. We kindly ask that you take a few minutes to give us feedback and let us know about today's session and other topics you are interested to see in the future. With that said, thank you very much and have a wonderful day for everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, Professor Lala. Thank you, Roxana.
You're welcome.
Thank
Have a
you.
great one. Bye.
Bye.